Live, go live, go live. And we are live. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
You got to think about it. That's what I started to realize. You got to think about it for the YouTube crowd, because if you're watching it after the fact, you're seeing it right from this. And a lot of the times we just kind of stand here in silence waiting for people to shuffle into the live, but we got to give that content to everybody watching all types of different ways, multimedia.
I lost the tweet with the screenshot of us because I just dragged the screenshot. So we got to do another screenshot. And at least I'm smiling this time, even though we lost. Okay. Going.
Everybody got notification squad shuffling in. We're going to send the tweet out. Get this going.
You guys like the Nets, or you guys off that now? You guys don't like the Nets anymore, huh?
I tell you, a whole lot of people switching up real quick. It's funny. You can tell on Twitter because there's no accountability for anything. In Game 3, you saw people talking about how horrendous the Nets were, and then when they got back in the game, they were like, "Oh, the Nets are back to being the best team on the planet," which I just think was hilarious. But we got a lot to talk about. Brandon's asking questions. We're going to save all of our questions until the end because this is going to be not exactly as long and positive as a podcast as we had last time, because we don't want to dwell too much on the horrible nature of our emotional states last night. That is why part of the reason why we didn't go live last night, because that was no fun after that game.
We usually never, when we lost back-to-back games during the regular season, I have to say this.
I think it happened twice, maybe. I think
we almost gave ourselves a night to record every time. I think we never got on recorded after back-to-back losses. One, you need time to think about it. Two, nobody wants to talk about back-to-back losses on one pod. That's trash. Like, there's nothing to celebrate.
No positivity, right? And we're a positive podcast. We're an optimistic brand. That is the core of our nature. And I think that's why a lot of people like us, because we always try to keep that positivity. But man, it sure is hard to be positive after back-to-back losses. But we're still going to bring it. We're still going to tell you all the positives we can bring out of it, how you should feel, why you should feel optimistic about your Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, yeah, new series. Notice that right down there? It says Nets lose back-to-back games, period. New series. Win 2 out of 3 at home. We're undefeated at home, right? I gotta remember to say that again on the pod, too. All right, we're about to count.
Actually, against the Bucks, we've always been undefeated at home. We've swapped. The home team has won every single game this entire season with the Nets and the Bucks. Interesting little statistic right there.
Hey, if you believe in home court advantage, maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's not. But
it sure is now. Bucks fans were loud. Nets fans were loud. But let's get into this podcast, Keith. I'll let you record your little intro, and then you can count me in.
All right. Talking Nets, episode 110. Man, we hate recording after back-to-back losses. It only happened a couple times, but we usually give ourselves the night to decompress, think about the situation, and we did. So we're going to talk about the games, but not too much. Nobody's trying to harp on those losses or rehash those losses. We'd rather hit you with the news and narrative surrounding this series. I even got some conspiracy theories surrounding this series, and we'll get you pumped up for Game 5 in the Barclays Center. You already know. This is Talking Nets. Let's get it, man. All right, that's saved. And now I will count us in for the actual pod in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets, episode 110. And your Brooklyn Nets are not looking so hot right now. Oh, my glob. What do we do? Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn joining you on Monday afternoon after we thought about it, after we wrote down some things and figured out how we were going to approach this podcast. Shout out to the listeners of this podcast. Last podcast was our fastest charting episode of all time. Air horns. Shout out to you. If this is your first time listening to Talking Nets, welcome. Hudson Flynn, can you go ahead and say hello to the people?
How we doing, everybody? Probably not great. We got some pretty negative vibes in this Nets world after going 0-2. And I get it. I understand it. There's a reason we're going live doing this podcast on Monday, June 14th, rather than on Sunday, June 13th after the game. We needed some time to collect ourselves, see what we're going to talk about, figure out how we're going to spin this positively like we always do. But Keith, we got some real talk in this podcast, and you said you got some conspiracy theories, and I've got some pretty sobering things that I want to talk about here because some interesting things going on in Nets world. But we got a new series, 5-game set. See if the Nets can pull it out. 3-game set. That's my bad.
Nah, we're good because I just noticed my mic dropped. So I don't even know. I think we got right until I said, Hudson Flynn, how's it going for you? And now I need to make sure that my mic is good because this is about the audio. For our live audience, welcome in. Chat amongst yourselves as we get that squared away. I will say hello in the chat really quick. Hello. But yeah, I'm having some tech difficulties over here, and I need to make sure this mic doesn't drop. No input selected. That is incorrect. Let's see. Oh, I see what happened here. My stupid ass Bluetooth that I use to play the voicemails connected to my MacBook, and then that overrides everything. And now, for some reason, GarageBand thinks I need to use the Bluetooth as my input and output. No, stupid. I would never do that. All right, here we go. We should be good now. On my end, are we recording now? Yeah, we're recording now. We're good. So, right back off of what Hudson Flynn just said. The Nets lose back-to-back games in Milwaukee. It's not what you want, but this is a new series now. The way I see it, they say the series doesn't start until the road team wins. Well, the road team hasn't won yet, so I guess this series hasn't started yet. And we are going into what looks like the most winnable game for the road team. As it currently stands, the Brooklyn Nets lost James Harden game 1, and then they lost Kyrie Irving game 4. And now we're sitting here like this is not the big three. This is just KD and the rest of the squad. The plan is not to go all the way with just KD. We built this team for a reason. We traded some of our favorite players for a reason. We did all of that to get here, and now it's kind of falling apart. That's a hater's dream. That's a hater's dream come true. We'll speak on some haters, but we got to get into the news and narratives to start. The first news and narratives that I want to hit is some news surrounding Kevin Durant's bodyguard. So first off, I want to say shout out to Antoine Lambert. He was the Nets director of security since September 2019, shortly after the Nets signed KD. And then he had already done the same thing with the Warriors when KD was there for Golden State. So this is KD's right-hand man. And you could tell by the way that he came in with that energy and got PJ Tucker up out of the paint. I wish I could do that. I'm watching the game. I'm watching PJ Tucker dog KD. I'm wishing I could step on the court and give him a shoulder. But some tweets came out, and at first I didn't know who it was. I thought that this was Bucks security. And then The Athletic tweets out Kevin Durant's personal bodyguard, who's on the Nets payroll, was one of the people who charged the court to break up the confrontation between KD and PJ Tucker. Now, when you see this, you just see, PJ Tucker get bumped out of the way by a guy in black. But then on Twitter, I saw later people were like, look at the logo. He's got a Brooklyn Nets logo. Then a hater, a New York sports hater says on the radio, Chris Carlin, Durant should be suspended for game 4. The last thing KD wanted was for his bodyguard to come on the floor. But what's worse, a player taking one step off the bench during a fight or a security guard shoving a player? ? Durant is responsible for his bodyguard's actions. Now, that might be the dumbest tweet that I've ever seen. How is KD in an NBA game responsible for what anyone else does? How is he responsible for his bodyguard's actions when he's in the heat of the game, Hudson?
Well, that's just nonsense. We have some contenders for dumbest things I've ever heard on this podcast, just to foreshadow something that we're going to get to later that just came out. But that is horrendously stupid. You think KD's got an earpiece in, signaled him to come on. He's like, yo, come on, let me get PJ Tucker out of here. Like, no, that is idiotic. And I'll stand by what I said when I first saw it happen and thought it was a Bucks security guard. I do think that the security guard coming in did escalate things. So obviously it wasn't kind of the most ideal thing to happen. But to put it on KD, and to not just put it on KD, but to say that he should be suspended for the next game of a playoff game, like, look, he knows who's listening to the New York sports radio, right? It's
Right.
blue and orange fans. It's Knicks fans, right? And that's what they want to hear. They want like, yeah, get KD out of there. Get him out of there. He didn't come to the Knicks. Get him off the court.
Lame.
That's all they want to hear. So I can't even fault, what was it, Chris Carlin too much, because at the end of the day, he knows who he's talking to. He knows it's going to play well with his base, but it's just so stupid and so blatant. Like, I don't know how you can feel right about yourself getting up in the morning, just saying some nonsense like that. But whatever, it's casual. It's what they always do. It's how they always talk about the Nets on social media, on New York sports radio, on the news, on, ESPN. But whatever, we move on. Dumb take. He's not allowed for the rest of the series. Happens.
Right. The NBA handled it.
Next.
The last thing to say about that is the NBA stepped in and they said, Antoine Lambert will not be able to be at any of the games in Milwaukee. And he also won't have court access in Brooklyn. Fine. They suspended him for the rest of the series, but shout out to you, Antoine Lambert. I appreciate you taking care of my boy, KD. Protect the Slim Reaper at all costs. Series ain't over. The series ain't over. And speaking of the series not being over, and speaking of us expecting to win this series still and move forward, two articles came out about one of the OG Nets, our guy, Spencer Dinwiddie, who I had been telling y'all would be back in June. We are in the middle of June right now. He's not back yet. But Christian Winfield wrote basically saying that there's a chance that he rejoins the Nets, at least on the sidelines. In my opinion, if he's healthy, what good is he doing on the sidelines as a coach cheerleader? If he's healthy, he should be an option. If he's healthy, this could be the end of his time as a Net. Let's see what he can do, especially under these current circumstances. We're down a couple guards. I don't know if you guys know that. And then Brian Lewis wrote an article. Shout out to him. We always retweet his stuff from the New York Post with a different take on it, suggesting that, it's not going to happen. Spencer Dinwiddie's time is good as done. Like, don't expect him to rejoin the Nets this season. I'm keeping hope alive and faith alive that as long as our season is alive, the chance for Spencer Dinwiddie to return is still alive. Hudson, what are your thoughts on that, bro? You thinking Spencer is done as a Net? You thinking that we do see him step into this high-intensity playoff atmosphere, or is it a long shot and they're just going to stick with who we got and the, Nets medical team just might not clear him to, return to the Nets?
First off, I want to point out that now I can't really believe any of those articles because I don't know who their sources are. But whoever they are, they have their wires completely crossed. So now anytime we get one of those breaking news articles and it's from either of those guys, at this point, I don't know who to believe. I don't know who's got the real sources. I don't know who's just talking to the janitor. But I think Spence is going to be back. There's no reason that Spence, puts all of this work and spends all this time talking about the fastest, ACL recovery in history. If he's not trying to come back, he's got a connection to New York City, to Brooklyn. This was the team, the franchise that revitalized his career, that made him who he is today. I am absolutely positive that there is some debt of gratitude that he feels like he owes the Brooklyn Nets for getting him to the position where even if he doesn't come back, he's forever going to be loved in Brooklyn and he is forever going to have a home with the Nets. At the same time, people haven't seen him play in so long, so if he can come out and put on even a moderately good performance, I think that's going to massively increase his stock and the value of, dollars that he's going to get from wherever they may come from in free agency. So I think that's absolutely huge. I mean, there's so many things to say about it. We don't know if he's been practicing. We don't know if he's been doing off-court stuff. We don't know if he's been doing on-court stuff. We don't really know what's been going on in full. But at this point, the Nets are down all of their primary ball handlers. We need him. So if he is available, let him play. He clearly wants to. So just like make it happen. I don't want to get into too much about whose report to believe, whose reports to not believe. But as a Nets fan, we are eternally optimistic. So I'm going to keep that optimism and hold out that he will be back for the finals because we're going to need him.
I mean, sounds like it's a good deal for both sides for him to play. Sounds like the Nets could use him. Sounds like he wants to step back on the floor to show that he's fully rehabbed, he's healthy, and he's still got it. So I don't know, man. There is a lot that is riding on this Nets medical staff, and that is how we transition into our next topic in the news and narratives, which is Kyrie's ankle and the talk around Kyrie's ankle and how we tweeted it out and how some people have interpreted it versus other people. My perspective on it is this. First off, let me start off with we support Kyrie. That's in the back. I don't know if y'all can see. And that's also on my shirt. We support Kyrie. That's a phrase that came from Talking Nets. That's a phrase that we've tweeted out because I guess we do unconditionally support Kyrie because of all the hate that he gets. And he's getting a lot of hate right now when he's down, right now while he's hurt, right now while the whole team is down. You can noticeably see the team was affected yesterday when Kyrie went down. That's a guy that's not just a leader on the court, but he's an emotional leader, a spiritual leader, a leader off the court, which Hudson tweeted out some stuff about him not being honored in I don't even want to talk about that because it just goes right along with what we're saying about we support Kyrie. There's just this narrative. They're never going to actually give that man his love for what he does off the court because that would go against his villain narrative. That would go against the narrative that more fans want to create. There was a map of like each state and their hated player, their most hated player. And I think Illinois had Kyrie. And I saw people tweeting, what did Kyrie ever do to Illinois? It doesn't matter. There's just haters there. And there's haters out here right now that want to say stupid things around the Boston Celtics. And one Glenn Big Baby Davis. Hudson has a sound bite from this, which is stupid because at first I wrote in our notes, Boston fans are foul celebrating this. Glenn Big Baby Davis is the worst because he wrote on social media, same foot that stepped on Lucky, like going back to Kyrie stepping on their mascot logo in center court. Hudson, please share with us what this big dumbass had to say today about the whole thing. Try to justify.
I hope you guys are ready for an emotional ride. And I want to point out before I play anything, he posted this video himself.
Everybody mad at me because Kyrie Irving stepped on Lucky and Lucky got his get back. Don't get mad at me because Lucky got his get back. I didn't say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Karma is a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? You do right by people. People do right by you. And I don't care.
Just going to pause it there. We're going to take this in sections because it's almost hilarious how many dumb things he said. And I'll let Keith take it after I do. Lucky is not a person. If you do people wrong, Lucky is not a person. He's just not. He's a painting on the floor. It's ridiculous. Glenn Big Baby Davis, the fact that you would double down on this take. But Keith, what do you think? What you think that Lucky is deserving to be treated with the same respect as a person?
Yo, why is he still talking about Lucky? It's not a real thing. Like he's going real hard for a cartoon. He's going real hard for a logo.
All right, let's keep it going.
Smoking.
I don't care if it's a logo. I don't even care if it's a logo. It means something to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, like countries that have flags. Like, you go and step on a logo flag. What is that? That's disrespect. I play for
Earlier in the podcast, I referenced hearing maybe the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. We actually played this soundbite before so we could get a bit of a grip on it, see what we when we wanted to pause it, so what we could talk about. We stopped there. We did not get past him comparing Lucky, the Boston Celtics mascot, a painted leprechaun on the floor of the TD Garden, to the flag of a country.
It's incredibly dumb. Hold on. You just compared flags that represent countries where people are born, where their whole families are born. You just compared that to the mascot from a city that's known for racism, a team and organization that has plenty of history of racism built into it. We just were talking about your racist fan base not too long ago, and you compared that to someone being a patriot or someone just, having loyalty to their stop. It's just so dumb to even. He said, it's like a flag. No, it's not like a flag. It's not like a country. It's a city and a NBA basketball team logo.
Let's keep it going, Keith, because there's more. We got a whole 30 more seconds of this.
for the Celtics. I'm a Celtic forever. So it don't matter. It don't fucking matter. Stop getting mad.
Turn right.
Because your man got weak ankles. His ankles is weak. His ankles is fucked up, and Lucky got his ass. And I'm slobbing on you niggas.
What?
Man, honestly, I just thought, so we hadn't listened to that part before the podcast, and I just thought that he was just going to get on there and say dumb shit, but that's disgusting. Honestly, that's disgraceful. Talking about Kyrie, you got weak ankles. Oh my God, that is
Well,
like in my head. There was a brotherhood of players that played in the NBA. It always seemed like you supported your family. We saw that, with Mark Cuban and the player whose name I'm forgetting that he helped out get through rehab. Like
Delonte West.
I thought Delonte West. I thought there was a brotherhood of the NBA. I thought players looked out for each other. I thought that when I saw, LeBron, Donovan Mitchell, all these players around the NBA supporting Kyrie when he went down, supporting James Harden when he went down, despite, the teams they play for, despite what might have happened in the past, despite rivalries, despite, all of that stuff on the court. I thought that we were better than this. I thought that people were better than this, but they're just not, man. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see a grown man, a former NBA player, go so hard because Lucky means something to him. They don't love you like that. You're not Paul Pierce. They don't love you in Boston like that, big baby. You would have been better off going hard for the Orlando Magic, bro. Like, stop that. And then, he dug his own grave. Karma has an interesting way of working. I would never wish it on someone, but I hate when people look at someone that's hurt and kind of kick them while they're down, or make fun of their injury, or try and twist it into something to say that, oh, that was Lucky getting his revenge. That's stupid. Giannis basically came in while Kyrie was going up and coming down, and he came in for a rebound. There was nowhere for Kyrie to land. He stepped on Giannis's shoe, which is like size 20. There's no space for him to land. Kyrie twists his ankle. It is what it is. Now, there's a few things I want to move on, like talking about this ankle stuff, but no more talk about big baby dumbass. One, was it a dirty play? When it got tweeted out from Talking Nets, it caused a little bit of a stir. I went and looked through the replies and some of the stuff, and I was fine with it because we'll take the free engagement. In the moment, Hudson was live tweeting, and he saw it as a dirty play. Now, when we watch the NBA, there's a rule that is there for shooters, shooting the three. You're supposed to give them like a halo in the same way you give a guy catching a punt a halo in football. You're supposed to give them that space so that they can land. And when you don't, it's looked at as a dirty play. We've seen that with Kawhi. We've seen that with a bunch of players. It's regularly called like foul in the NBA now. I don't think it was a dirty play, but it could be. It could be looked at that way. And there should be a rule in place where it's like, hey, man, this guy was going back up for a shot. You charged in and took up his space to land. You got to respect guys' space on the floor. That's how guys get hurt, and that can alter a series. Hudson, I'll let you defend the tweet since you published the tweet, which is fine. Like I said, it's how you saw the play. I know there was a lot of people saying it's not dirty, but it could be looked at as a dirty play.
Yeah, so right off the bat, and I did post it. This was I recorded and posted the first replay I saw of it, and this was right after everything happened. Do I think it's a dirty play? At this point, after looking at it and listening to Giannis's reaction to the play when he went in the postgame, and I talked about this on our postgame IG Live, he seemed genuinely shaken up by it. He seemed genuinely nice. And aside from the whole not liking the run and dunk style of his basketball, I do think he's a genuinely good person. I don't think he's out there to injure anybody. So I don't think it was a dirty play, but do I think it was a flagrant one? Absolutely.
Could be.
I absolutely think it's a flagrant one. I think it could be looked at as a flagrant two. You have to give the player some landing space. If shooters get it, then I think Kyrie should get it as well. I think that is absolutely, even in the paint, I think that is absolutely not an intentional dirty play, but it's certainly a dangerous play. It's certainly a play that didn't have to be made. Giannis is bigger than Kyrie. If you look at the recording, he didn't have to undercut Kyrie like that while he was in the air. I don't think it was intentional, but to not give Kyrie any of that landing space was, to me, a textbook flagrant one. And it wasn't even looked at. The play wasn't even whistled. It wasn't even a common foul. And I know Keith has a lot to say about these refs, so I won't get into it too much.
Oh,
But
it's
to
on the
see
way.
a play like that happen and for there to be no whistle, no common foul, no flagrant, no anything, no stoppage of play until the ball started coming back and the Nets had to call a timeout. That's disgraceful. And it was absolutely indicative of the way the refs treated the Nets in these last two games. And to just see Kyrie in pain, literally writhing on the court, on the floor,
Game's
it
still
just broke
going
my
on.
heart. It just broke my heart with the game still going on. I couldn't think about basketball right after that. It just broke my heart to see him like that on a play that was not necessary, that really didn't seem to me like a basketball play.
Yeah, I don't think it was a dirty play, but I think it can be viewed as a dirty play. Some people said maybe the NBA will go back and watch this and assess a flagrant one. They said that during the game. Like, no, they're not doing that because Giannis is a golden child in the NBA. And when we get into this conversation about the refs in the next couple minutes, I will elaborate on Giannis and his position in the NBA. The last thing about Kyrie, how long do we think he's out? I'll start. I have sprained both my ankles. I played football growing up. It was a common thing. I sprained my ankles playing basketball. I used to like literally have two like ASO bandages that I kept on both ankles because I had weak ankles. But I saw Kyrie walking off yesterday, and at first I was upset. I was like, bro, as soon as you sprain your ankle, get off of it. Like, do not try and be tough. But then I remembered Kyrie is Kobe walking. Kyrie is Mamba mentality. Kyrie is going to walk off because he saw Kobe walk off with a torn Achilles. So Kyrie walked off on his own power, and I hope that didn't make it any worse. The x-rays came back negative. So that tells me Kyrie has to just ice up, stim, and do treatment for a week. And if he does that for a full week, I think he can be back for game 7, but I do not expect him to play in game 5 or game 6. What are your thoughts about that? I think it can take a guy like Kyrie, who is spiritually and mentally and emotionally tapped in, who has the best medical team around him in the Brooklyn Nets, and has probably sprained his ankles before. Like, I think realistically, if it's a game 7, Kyrie is going to play in that game 7.
No, I agree completely. And I want to address the Woj report that came on today. He went on ESPN and he talked about it. And he said two things. First, talking about Kyrie, he said it's very unlikely that he will play game 5. The fact that was even a question, the fact that Woj felt the need to get up there and say it was very unlikely that he'd play in game 5 indicates to me that by game 6, by game 7, he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to play. Now, he also went out and talked about James Harden. And I want to say that as well because we haven't talked about him too much since game 1. He said that Harden is going to go right up until game time, and that's when a decision is going to be made about him. And he said it was unlikely, but the Nets have a decision to make. And I said it on our post game. This is just my immediate feeling after that game. You see Harden running and jumping up the sideline the whole game on this road trip. He's ready to go. If the Nets let him play, he's going to play. So I think injury-wise, Kyrie, game 7, and I think, and I really do think this, Harden is going to suit up for game 5.
Now, I would like James Harden to be out there, but these high-intensity workouts that they consistently speak of, from him being hurt in April and May to now with him having to string together multiple high-intensity workouts, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that or not. But what I'll say about Harden is, watching the last 2 games, last game, he didn't sit down. And the game before that, game 3, he was on the court. Every chance he had to walk on the court, he was walking on the court. He was damn near coaching most of the game. He didn't look like somebody that was hobbled by a hamstring to me. Now, yeah, Harden being able to run and cut and dribble and shoot, way different than him being on the sideline. But what I'm saying is, if you have a bum hamstring, you're probably going to be sitting in the back row, kind of chilling on that. If you feel good to stand on your own too and clap and run on the court when guys do something, it means that you ain't really worried too much about that. But the Nets' job is to worry about that. The Nets medical team's job is to worry about that. And I think they are worried about it. And there's a good chance we don't see him in game 5. What I said in our post game on IGTV or our IG live that we put on our IGTV was the Nets need to break the glass now, right? Break the emergency glass. In any other circumstances, regular season, we wouldn't break this glass to say, go, Harden, go. But you traded for this man. This whole season, we have been rooting for this guy as our MVP. And now we get to a game 5 at home where we have to defend home court without Kyrie. Break the glass. He's got to be a go. If he's telling you he can go, let him go. Even if he's not full go, even if he doesn't get the full minutes, you don't have to come out and say that. Let him step on the court. He will know where he can take his game. He will know what limits he can press or not, push all the way to. But if the Nets just say, oh, he didn't string together 3 high-intensity workouts before Tuesday, if the Nets just decide the series isn't over, let's see what happens in game 5. If we need him, we'll put him in a do-or-die game 6. I think that'll be the wrong decision. What are your thoughts about that, Hudson? You just said you expect him to play in game 5.
I do. I think this is an emergency. I don't, it's not an elimination game, so you can't really say that it's a must win. But for the Nets, if they lose this game on home court, then the whole tenor of the series really is changed. And to think about tomorrow, like going into a game with Mike James, and all love and respect to Mike James being our starting point guard in kind of what feels like a bit of a do or die home game in the playoffs, when the expectation is championship or bust. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great because it's just not the way this team was built. And I want to address what I thought was maybe one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And I hate the national TV broadcasts whenever we go on national TV. But after Kyrie went down, I forget which commentator it was. I don't think that it was Mike Breen. I forget who it was,
Steven
though.
Jackson?
It was Steven Jackson. That's
Mark
who it was.
Jackson. Mark Jackson.
Mark Jackson. Yep.
Smoke.
He went on there and he said, now you got to play like the rest of us. Now you got to have a team like the rest of us with only one star. And that was maybe the dumbest response to Kyrie Irving's injury that I have ever heard. I can't even imagine saying something, first off, that callous about someone's injury. Like, oh, now the field is level. You're going to have to play like everybody else does. You don't have your advantage anymore. The Nets built a team to have these 3 stars, right? We traded away all of our, mid-major, high-level, depth pieces in Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen to make this team possible to go in with these stars. So if you lose those stars, there's no one to fall back on because the team wasn't built to have anyone to fall back on.
Right.
Like, and to try and spin this into a situation where it's, oh, Kevin Durant can't carry a team on his own. If Kevin Durant was the centerpiece of this team and was the only star that the Nets had, we would have Jarrett Allen on this team. We'd have Karis LeVert on this team. We would have more of a primary ball handler than Mike James to be the point guard, right?
Right.
Like, it's just so idiotic to spin it in a way like now the Nets have a level playing field. They don't. This is not a level playing field.
That's
this isn't what the
do,
Nets
bro.
were made for. It's just a dumb spin, and I had to address it.
I think I said it during my live stream. Shout out to y'all that watched my live stream from my living room. Second one we did. It sucked because we watched Kyrie go down and we watched us lose back-to-back games. But I said on there, I don't know what the fuck Mark Jackson is talking about. Did he just say that? Did he really just come out here and try and say now KD's got to do it on his own? Now KD sees what it's like to be on a team in the playoffs. And I'm like, whoa. We just followed the NBA model. We're not the first ones to do this. We're not the first ones to did y'all not just watch AD and LeBron team up to win it last year? We've seen this before. This is not new. But these spin doctors want to, not so easy. Oh, now KD's got to prove how great he is on his own. Nah, this team was built so that we would have KD, Kyrie, and James Harden as starters. And I saw somebody tweet or put in the chat, they said maybe the universe isn't ready for a big 3 like this. And I'm like, maybe they aren't. But we'll see. Time will still tell. Last but not least, out of news and narratives, these refs. Now, I know there's a whole school of thought between analysts, podcasters, athletes, former players, where you don't blame the refs. You can't blame the refs. The refs, they're just invisible. Nah, I am going to blame the refs. And here's my conspiracy theory. These guys are eating their whistles consistently. There's so many missed calls that it's blatant. This has been the worst officiated series out of any of these NBA playoff series. I've watched them all. I've laid eyes on a game and multiple games in each series now.
And we saw the MVP get tossed in an elimination game last night, too. That's how bad these refs have been.
Good. I mean, Jokic is fed up. And I was with him on that. Bro, go ahead. Do what you got to do. He said he was trying to change the rhythm of the game, but not talking about that game, talking about our game. The amount of contact that we're seeing allowed, it's hard to not think that like there's some bigger power at play here, or that these refs are like in awe of KD and Kyrie and the Nets in some way. And that they also have a stake in this as far as like, hey, I'm reffing this series. I want this to go 7. When we did the Bucks preview, we gave the Bucks hella respect. I said it's going to be Nets in 7. Hudson said Nets in 6. I went on the Milwaukee radio and I said, hey, if the Nets get punched in the mouth in Brooklyn, the series could go longer. But if the Nets handle business in Brooklyn, we're good. We got punched in the mouth in Milwaukee, and it wasn't just the Bucks punching us in the mouth. These refs have been eating their whistles. They haven't been calling fouls. They also haven't been calling 10-second violations on Giannis when he's taken 13 seconds on average to shoot one free throw. Like, am I losing my mind watching this? I literally cannot watch Giannis anymore because I have grown to hate his game. He just chucks up threes after missing a bunch, and he's allowed to do that. This guy has nothing in his bag. He's got no crossover. He's got no dribble moves. He's got nothing besides barge through the lane, not get foul calls or not get a foul called against him, and just put the ball on the rim, dunk the ball. And like after a while, here's my other conspiracy theory. You just start to realize, okay, LeBron is out. The Lakers are out. The defending champs are out of here. Less and less teams are in this, like we spoke on. The NBA is a business. This is a product. Giannis internationally is an international superstar. All of these guys are international superstars, but he is a different one because he's the Greek freak. He wasn't born on American soil. Similar to Jokic winning the MVP. They understand the value in the global game, the world game, and raising these guys up to say, yeah, they play in America in our association, but we're a game for the world. And so what do you want to do? Jokic is on his way out, or they just got swept. Jokic is out. So you have to keep a world figure in these playoffs. They need this series to go 7 for money, for business, for ad dollars, for TV, and for their world audience that's rooting for Giannis. That's why he gets to take 13 seconds. If anybody else took that long shooting a free throw, we would all be like, what the fuck is going on? But we've kind of just accepted it from Giannis. We just watch him dribble the ball 6-7 times, take his time, and it's fine. It won't be fine Tuesday night in Brooklyn. Some of you be listening to this on Tuesday. It won't be fine tonight. I expect to see everybody there. Hudson, what are your thoughts on these refs and Giannis before we quickly look around the association and hit these games and get out?
Giannis wouldn't, like, I get it from the refs' perspective. You don't want to have Giannis foul out, but if you're calling the game the way the rule book says to call it, Giannis is fouling out of the game in the first quarter, and you can't have that. So I get it. But at the same time, how do you call 1 10-second violation on him in this series, 2 in the entire playoffs, right? What is the point of calling that 1? Because that 1 shows, oh, look, I'm paying attention.
1 in each
but then
arena.
You're not. But then you're not for the rest of the time, right? Like, it's just, it makes no sense. Like, if you're going to call it, then call it. If you're not going to call it, then don't. But he's out there taking 13 seconds. He's putting up practice shots. It's just ridiculous. Like, and then at the same time, I don't even want, if I'm going to have bad refs, you're going to say, let them play, then let them play. Let both teams play. Like, the lack of consistency is astounding. It's ridiculous. We saw Joe Harris and Blake Griffin get 3 personals on them in the first quarter, and PJ Tucker was committing so many fouls that you had Rich Kleiman say he committed his 13th personal of the third quarter. He was counting them. It's ridiculous. You have Rich Kleiman saying that on Twitter for everybody to see. It is hilariously bad. It's ridiculous, and there's no consistency. The only thing I need to say is that Kyrie took his first free throws of the series in Game 3, in the third quarter of Game 3. That is just unacceptable. That is just unacceptable. It's Kyrie Irving. He gets to the free throw line because he drives and he's a small guy and he gets hit, right? Like, how are you not seeing that? And then the other stat I'll give you, which you can read in one of 2 ways, but the way I'll tell you the way I'm reading it, is that going into this 4th game, the Nets have taken half, as a team, the Nets organization, the borough of Brooklyn, has taken half as many free throws as Joel Embiid. as one player. And we know Joel's game is partly, predicated on being able to get to the line, but to be doubled up by one player, no matter who that player is, to your team is ridiculous. There's just a complete lack of consistency. And at this point, it's more than just getting players hurt and there not being any, penalty for it, like we saw with Kyrie. It's putting the Nets down, right? Like it's ending this series because during the regular season, we excelled at shooting free throws as a team. We were great, and we were led by Kyrie. It's part of our game. And you have KD getting triple teamed, and then whenever he goes to the basket, you're okay with Chris Middleton doing a 2-arm shove on him like he actually did. I have the screenshot of it, and pushing him over, and there just being no call, swallow your whistle. It's ridiculous, and it's not just the Scott Foster, Tony Brothers situation. It's the way it's been going this entire series, and it's unacceptable. It's just not basketball. They're playing some sport. Some sport is on your TV, but it is not basketball because that is not what basketball looks like.
My bad. Sorry, I was muted. My mic dropped again, and then I couldn't hear you either, but we're good. It's time to move on from the ref conversation. It's time to move on from it because, like I said, we don't want to be the guys blaming the series on the refs because when the series ends our way or the other way, no one's going to care about the refs. But you guys see PJ Tucker look like a fucking linebacker out there. This dude's playing football. You guys see guys blatantly getting bumped by Giannis and no foul call is being called. The NBA should hold these guys accountable, but they won't because it's a part of their agenda. This is the NBA product. This is the best series in the East. And in my humble opinion, I believe the winner of this series will go on to the NBA Finals and most likely win it. Them knowing that, they need this series to go 7. That way it can go over the course of 3 different weekends and dominate headlines. And it is. It's doing what they want to do. So around the association, the Nets and Bucks are tied 2-2. You know that already. We just talked about some things around that. We'll talk about these games quickly. The Hawks and the Sixers play tonight, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Philly leads the series 2-1. They're in Atlanta. Hopefully the Hawks can tie that one up. The Jazz and the Clippers, they also play tonight in LA in the late game, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Jazz lead 2-1. The Suns swept the Nuggets. The Phoenix is on chill. 4 games is all it took. Done. They're resting with their feet up. Their fans are feeling great. They're talking finals. They're looking at it like, hey, whoever comes out of Utah and the Clippers, we're beating them. We're 1 foot, they're already in the Western Conference Finals with 1 foot. They're in the actual finals with the other. So good for them. Now, let's talk about these games, man. Game 3. Game 3, the Bucks beat the Nets 86-83 Thursday night in Milwaukee. And I put out a video looking at the spread and the odds. I don't even gamble anymore. But as I'm looking at the spread and the odds, I'm like, why is Milwaukee favored by 3.5 points? And why is the over-under so high? They're expecting 233 points between these two teams. And that game ended up being the lowest scoring game of the series. Both teams scored under 90 points. And Brooklyn covered. We only lost by 3. And we had a couple opportunities down the stretch to win this game. And I had said on our live, please go to our Instagram and watch the live that we did after that game, that we're not going to spend too much time talking about this game on the pod. There's no point. But what I will say is nightmare game for Joe Harris. That was nightmare game 1. Bruce Brown gave us a hell of a second quarter. He shouldn't have been in a position to take our last 2 shots, which were both in the paint. And he wasn't ready for that moment. He wasn't ready to put the ball in the hoop in crunch time, clutch time. Like, he's a young player. It's his first playoffs. KD or Kyrie should have been shooting that. Hudson, what are your thoughts about this first game in Milwaukee, which is also the game that Antoine Lambert bumped PJ Tucker because PJ Tucker was in KD's face and he was dogging him and fouling him and he wasn't getting all the calls, and they needed to win a game on their floor. Middleton rose. They were, a lot better in Milwaukee than they were in Brooklyn. So what were your thoughts on this Bucks game 3, the first game in the Fiserv Forum?
Sucks to lose that one, especially now looking back. I'd feel a lot more confident about this series if we were up 3-1 without Kyrie and James than if it was 2-2. But look, it's what you said. Joe had a nightmare game Bruce shouldn't have been put in that position. That one's on the coaching staff. That's not even really on Bruce because he's been told all year to take that shot. That's your shot. If you're going to put him in that position, you just shouldn't. If it's KD and Kyrie's ball there, you got to give it to one of your superstars. You got to give it to one of your closers. I mean, what else? It's the same narrative we've been talking about. The NBA in their 2-minute review said that Chris Middleton's shot wasn't a foul, that they called a foul on. It was also a 2-pointer, not a 3-pointer. And they also said that a call that was a ball out of bounds. It was not off of Blake Griffin. It was off of the Bucks, and it should have been Nets ball. So whatever, refs are horrendous. That's just the way it is. That's the same thing we've been talking about. 2 horrendous calls in the last 2 minutes. Whatever. There's nothing really to take away from this game in terms of X's and O's because it was just such an aberration. It was just such a strange game. The Nets hadn't put up that few points this entire season. It was their worst offensive showing. The Bucks scored 86 points again, so at least the defense was honest. But it's just nothing to take away from. It was just a depressing game. I wish the Nets won it. Looking back now, I really wish they would have won it, but this isn't the kind of game where you can say, okay, here's this, and this. Here's the adjustments we need to take going back into Game 5.
Yeah, I'm not able to hear Hudson on my end, which is fine. We'll edit this in post-production, and when I say edit this in post-production, the video on YouTube won't be edited, but the audio will be edited fine for the podcast. I'm going to try and remove Hudson for a second and then bring Hudson back in. And I don't know, check your mic, Hudson. Check your settings. Make sure you're good on your end.
Nah, my mic is golden.
Here.
I
can
it
see
picked up
everything.
in my
I
Audacity.
can hear everything. I'm testing. Just tested audio on my end, and I'm hearing it just fine. Let's move on to Game 4. Sucks that we lost that game how we did. KD gave me a great moment hitting that 3 at the end, but it wasn't enough. He should have got more than enough opportunities down the stretch to hit another 3 to tie it or take the lead, but we didn't get that. So Game 4, going into Game 4, after the first loss of the series, I would say most Nets fans were not upset. I would say most Nets fans were not looking at that game like, oh, no, this is the end. We were looking at that game like, man, without Harden, we played them that close. We took their best shot, and that's what they came up with, a 3-point win, only scoring 86 points. That's what they came up with. We got one voicemail to play. I'll play that for you guys right now, and then we'll talk about Game 4. Nope. That's what this issue is, man. I think this Bluetooth is not connecting to my – should be connected to my phone, but it's connecting to the MacBook, and then that's overriding my microphone.
Good morning, Brooklyn. Hobby Thing. Follow me on Twitter. What's going on, fellas? Fortunately, I'm calling after a loss, 3-point loss, considering the fact at one point we were down 33-9 in the first quarter. You know what? A 3-point loss ain't that bad. And yes, underneath a minute left in the game, we actually had the lead. So we took the lead earlier than that. But all I gotta say is the next game's gonna be interesting between Tucker and KD. I am praying that between the fuck KD chants from the Milwaukee Bucks fans, which wow, I thought the Bucks fans were a little bit better than that. But between those chants and that little beats that KD and Tucker had, which let me tell you, that was kind of ridiculous for the security guards to bum rush the way they did. It kind of escalated the situation, but that matchup's going to be interesting, and I hope KD comes back with a vengeance for the next game on Sunday. That's all I got, trying to make it quick. Deuces, Brooklyn!
All right. So KD was not able to come back with a vengeance. Those Wisconsin Milwaukee fans, they're not better than an FKD chant. That was not clever or original at all. I knew that was coming. It's tough to be KD when you're getting dogged all game for every game and not getting half the calls. You can see the frustration on KD's face, and you can see that just the way that the Nets looked. We looked out of it, man. Watching the game yesterday, I'm like, Mike James was never supposed to play this many minutes for any NBA team. We're doing this out of necessity now. Joe Harris, I said game 3 was a nightmare game for Joe Harris. The nightmare continued some into game 4. Still not getting what we need to get out of Joey Buckets, who I thought was ready for the bright lights. I thought he was ready for prime time. You won't hear any more Broadway Joe out of me. We need more out of a guy that's making 75 mil, a guy that's our guy, the last of the Mohicans, one of the last of the OG Nets. Nobody else could get it going offensively, really. It was like KD was on an island on his own. And like I said, I hate the narrative of people trying to be like, oh, well, now he's got to do it on his own. Now he sees what it's like. You know, Blake tried. Bruce Brown tried. Jeff Green was back for this game. He tried to give us a spark too, but it wasn't enough. And ultimately, losing Kyrie the way we lost Kyrie in the first half sucked the win out of every Nets fan, sucked the win out of a lot of NBA fans that want to see this series between the best players. And now the Nets are without Kyrie and James Harden. So that's not the series that you were expecting. That's not the series we were expecting. Not the series anyone was expecting. And here we are. Let's see if I can hear Hudson now. Hudson, can you see if your mic comes in for me?
Let's see.
I'm not hearing it, but go for it, brother. Go for it.
Word. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to keep this quick because Keith can't hear me. The Nets offense is predicated off of one thing. It's off of keeping defenses honest and spacing, right? So if we're not going to have an honest defense, and we didn't have that because none of our shooters showed up really in that game, KD's not going to have any space to do what he needs to do, especially if he's not getting foul calls. So that's just not going to work out well, and it didn't work out well. What else? The team just got the wind taken out of them by Kyrie going down. It was just disappointing. Again, you can't take too many X's and O's from this game just because it was such a strange game because Kyrie went down. Secondary players need to step up. The depth Nets, the next man up Nets need to step up, or else we're going to lose this game at home if we don't have Harden play. We need our secondary players to hit shots. They don't have to make their own shots because they're going to be able to have open shots with KD getting triple teamed. But they have to make the shots that they get that are open, that they were missing in the last game, and we just need them to step up. We need Joe to step up. We need Landry to step up. Bruce has been good, but he needs to step up a little bit more. We need Uncle Jeff to hit his shot. And once that happens, if we can do that and the bench can step up, I think we can gut out this next win. But after that game, it's going to be tough sledding, I think.
All right, it's back on me. I think it's a sign to start to wrap up this pod. Honestly, after watching the second game, my conspiracy theory thoughts were confirmed again. What a hater loves happened again. Like I said, I was at the wedding Saturday, and the first minute Harden goes down, I'm like, oh, this is what a hater loves. We watched Kyrie go down in this game, which we needed more out of Kyrie in this second game. In game 4, we were expecting Kyrie to turn it on and give us more. He wasn't able to do that. He's out in the first half, and it's unfortunate, man. I feel like I saw the most negativity I've seen from Nets fans. A lot of casuals revealed themselves over this weekend. A lot of people that don't really know what they're watching or don't really know what they're talking about revealed themselves this weekend. And we come to you as fanalists. We come to you humbly admitting that we never played basketball at a high level, that we don't know, but we do know some things. We do watch this team. We have watched basketball over the years. We are fans of this, not analysts, aka we're just fanalists. Moving on. Nets lose that game. 107-96 Sunday afternoon in Milwaukee. Here we are. New series. The Nets lost back-to-back games. Do me a favor. Go back and look at our regular season schedule. Now, this is the playoffs. It's not the regular season. But have the Nets, this was the worst back-to-back losses. Scoring 96 and 83, like not breaking 100 points. This isn't the Nets. This isn't what we're supposed to be doing. This isn't the team that we're supposed to have. So you understand that. But go back. We don't lose back-to-back games and then not score points. So something has to change, and the change is going to come. Here's the upcoming playoff schedule. Tonight or tomorrow night, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, Tuesday, June 15th, the Brooklyn Nets will host the Bucks in Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Later game, 8:30 p.m. start time, Eastern time on TNT. I will be there trying to link up with some fans, trying to get some good energy, trying to get another squad pick. Because they say there's no Nets fans. And that goofy-ass chick wrote a whole article interviewing everybody but a Nets fan. She literally cherry-picked people in the arena to get canned answers from to build a whack-ass article. So please show up and show out. I am going to make sure to wear my New Jersey Nets jersey so they know what type of time I'm on. And if there's anybody doing any interviews and wants to hear from any Nets fans, holler at your boy. I got plenty to say. After that, which we're hoping to win, we're undefeated at home. We're hoping we defend home court. We're hoping that the Nets take the series to 3-2. And then we'll have Nets versus Bucks Game 6 in Milwaukee at the Fiserv Forum Thursday, June 17th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. And we will be back Friday with a new episode to talk about what happens with you guys. Now, we are stepping into do or die territory. And what I mean by that is if the Bucks win the next 2 games, series is over. If the Nets win the next 2 games, series is over. If we split, we're going into a sudden death game 7. This is what it's all about. It's the playoffs. This is what the NBA wants. They want drama. They want headlines. They want controversy, and they've got it in this series. Hudson Flynn, anything else before I read our reviews and close this pod?
Every single game played between the Nets and the Bucks this year was won by the home team. So the Nets need to win this game to keep this trend going. I hope that we can get this home win done. I hope we can force Milwaukee to a do-or-die Game 6 for them. And then if we do lose that game, we can keep the streak alive and win the home game with Kyrie Irving and James Harden all back together to show the Bucks who we really are. So let's just keep the good vibes rolling. Let's bring the positivity. And tomorrow, if you're in the Barclays Center, which you should be, let's be loud.
So if you made it this far in the podcast, we wanted to keep this one shorter, but really we just wanted to keep the talk about the losses short. There's no reason to go over and nitpick everything from those games. Like, we're good. Turn the page. It's time to read some reviews. On the road to 100, we're 1 review away. Somebody is about to write another review and be ding, 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 ding. Review number 100 for Talking Nets. So let's go back. Wednesday, Giants updater on IG writes, Nets in 4. Best podcast a Nets fan could ask for. Brooklyn. Well, I'm guessing this is a Giants fan, and unfortunately, it can't be Nets in 4 anymore. But we appreciate the shout out as the best podcast Nets fans could ask for. And here's another one. Thursday, JFlow-ZKU writes, the GOATs. GOATs in capital letters. 5 stars. Love the pod. Been listening from the first episodes, and it's awesome to see the growth. Nothing better than 2 of the best fanalists in the game talking about the Nets. Nets world. Let's go win a chip, boys. Let's go win a chip. The mission is still the same. This is the part of the podcast where we pump you up for the next game. Game 5 is on our floor. We don't lose in Brooklyn. I don't care who's on the court. I don't care if Harden doesn't play. I'm not expecting Kyrie to play. If it's just KD, KD is going to do his thing. Joe Harris is due to rise. When Joe Harris had that 25-point game in Brooklyn, we can get another one of those in this series. It happened last series. It can happen in this series. Not sure what game that was. I think it was game 2, not game 5. Game 5 ended up being the closeout in the last series. We need energy. We need the fans. We need you to show up and yell and scream. Even bring somebody that's not a fan. We need a packed house. We need it to look like, okay, Nets fans got these guys back. And it can't look like Nets Twitter and some of you weirdos that are hitting the panic button and saying the series is over. I've never seen a group of people pack it up so fast. I guess I'm coming from Yankee land where, like, we don't do that. We're not out of it until we're all the way out of it, especially in a tied series. New series, 3 games. If we're undefeated on home floor, we got to win 2 games on our home floor out of 3. And there's a good chance that help is on the way, but we got who we got. And Marks we trust. Sean Marks built this team this way. These guys got to rise. They got to figure it out. We've got good coaches. They're going to figure out what to do. And I do not expect the Bucks to come into Brooklyn and be as mighty as they were. And I also don't expect these refs to come in there and eat their whistles. I'm sure there's been enough calls from the Brooklyn Nets and from other people like, yo, y'all are really tweaking. Like, It's so obvious how you're calling the game. So leave us a review, subscribe to the pod, rate the pod 5 stars. It helps us out. You guys see the growth. We appreciate you guys for rocking with us and getting us this far. Leave a voicemail, 201-870-0461. We'll play it on the show. Hopefully we get some wins and some good vibes for you guys to call after the game. Make sure you follow us across platforms at Talking Nets. It's Twitter, our biggest platform. Instagram, which is growing, about a fourth of the size of our Twitter. Our YouTube, which now is, climbing in subscribers, and we're getting a good amount of views each episode. And download the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. That's growing as well. We're also on Facebook, and that's pretty much everywhere you can find Talking Nets fans, Talking Nets content, myself and Hudson. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the shirt. We support Kyrie. We support Kyrie. That shirt's available. The nicknames list shirt is available. And then Scary Hours Are for Playoffs is available at shop.johnboymedia.com. Use promo code playoffs for 20% off. And that's all we got, man. Positive energy, good vibes going in to game 5. And as we walk into do or die territory, the series is on the line. The season is on the line. In Marks, we trust. In Nash, we trust. In KD, we definitely trust. These guys do not want to go out like this. They know that the Bucks are not a better team than them. They will take their own destiny into their own hands and get it done. You just got to believe, too. It starts in the mind. I told y'all that multiple times through the season and before the playoffs started. It starts in your mind. If you start thinking it's over, then it's over. But you can't fall into that. It's the playoffs. It's the second round. Nets fans, we're not used to being in the second round. We're not used to these hurdles and these obstacles and the trepidation of the second round, right? When you get in the second round, other narratives come into play. Other things come into play. You're one of the last teams standing. We got to fight through it. Our world, Nets world. Let's go Nets. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn. And we out.
And that's the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
And that pod will be under an hour. The live is a little longer, but obviously we started that beforehand. And, I don't know. Positive energy, man, because you don't want to be the guy deleting tweets if this is over in the next 2 games. Or if this goes game 7 and the Nets pull it out and you were one of those goofy fans that were like, oh, man, we're doomed. We're done. Oh, we can't do it. You don't know that. You don't know that. Things are going to change, and we're still in it. That's why it's a 7-game series, right? The first 4 games, even. Now we've got 3. And, don't pull up to our YouTube if you're a hater. You can keep that. You can chill. Like, if your name is Ham Destroyer, like, just don't pull up in anyone's YouTube chat. Like, go destroy some ham, bro.
It's all good.
Like, we're good. Don't need you in here. This is all love here. This is all Nets world. This is all our community. Hudson, you got anything else before I shut it down and go edit the pod?
Nah. See you, everybody. Thank you for pulling up. Show up at the Barclays Center. Bring the good vibes. Be loud. Nets in 6.
Hey, thanks for rocking with us once again. Make sure you guys subscribe. Follow us everywhere. We got you covered. We're going to keep you going through these next couple games. We'll see what happens, but got to believe, got to have faith. Once again, our world, Nets world, Talking Nets. We out.